historically, geopolitics and shipping go together. Let me remind you for the British embargo against Napoleonic France.
I remember it well.
Exactly. And all this discussion, including what the Admiral said, concentrates on risks. But let me reveal the elephant in the room. Risks come with opportunity. And actually, the maritime industry makes a lot of wealth out of this risk because of wars, sanctions, embargoes. So, let me give the big picture. Previous speakers talk about the seismic change that has to do with the rise of China. This is really seismic, because China, in economic terms, have already managed to bypass the United States by 25% in PPP terms. Therefore, the United States has to react. How can it react? It cannot make war with nuclear weapons. So, like the first Cold War, the competition is political, political subversion, but most importantly, economic warfare. That's precisely what we see right now. There are two basic differences compared to Cold War I. The competition in Cold War I took place in the sea, in the land, in Central Europe. Now it takes place in the sea. Look at the area of competition. It's the periphery of Eurasia, Ukraine, between Baltic and Black Sea, between Mediterranean and the Gulf. Indian Ocean, most importantly, Southeast China Sea, East China Sea, and the Arctic. So the competition takes in the sea. The second big difference is that because of globalization, now we have economic interdependence. The economies are tied. Therefore, this connectivity becomes a weapon. So we have the weaponization of interdependence, weaponization of supply chains, and of course, weaponization of shipping. Why? Trade takes place in the sea because it's more efficient. 80% of the trade goes in the sea. But 70% of this trade goes through choke points. So it's very easy to disturb shipping. That's what we see now in Hormuz. That's what we saw in the Black Sea. And by the way, the most important choke point is the Malacca Strait that pass 1/3 of the world trade. And there you have China claiming the 9-dash line in the South China Sea. So the freedom of navigation that the ambassador talked before, it's central. So, given that, let me say the following. What is really different is that the weaponization of shipping, although it's not new, as I said, piracy, the tanker war, if you remember, in the 80s. Now, what is new is that you have powerful states like Russia, like Ukraine, like Iran, using the most advanced technology, space, artificial intelligence, cyber, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones against shipping and shipping infrastructure, like ports. This is new and creates a huge risk, but also, as I said, the opportunities. And the opportunities come from the weaponization of supply chains and interdependence. Tariffs. Why you have tariffs? I think the American representative before explained it. The US tries to move production back in the United States. It gives incentives for friend-shoring, on-shoring, and near-shoring. So that's a structural change. Port fees, as he explained, it tries to move shipbuilding in the United States. By the way, that's a pipe dream. The United States cannot do it. And let me explain why.
Keep it short if you can.
Yes, shipbuilding needs cheap labor. So you cannot bring shipbuilding back in the United States and throwing the Mexicans and the Latinos out. So this will not happen. To conclude, what the United States try to do is consolidation, mostly in the Western Hemisphere and roll back Chinese influence. So what we see right now in Venezuela, in Panama, in Iran, is rolling back Chinese influence in the Cold War too. So this explains why we have market inefficiency, but as I said, market inefficiencies is the best thing that can happen to the industry. Nobody talks about it openly, but everybody knows that wealth is being generated by precisely this market inefficiency.